Hey guys, it's Aiden from Gamers Class. Today I'm going to be doing a video covering some of the most common mistakes at low MMR for safe lane carry players. So getting in the video, I'm going to do a top 4 mistakes of some of the biggest points I think some of the carries that lower MMRs miss out on, and some of the things that are holding them back from improving, as well as climbing MMR obviously.
If you like this kind of content, go to gamersguys.com. For just $10 a month, get your replays analyzed, watch masterclasses with pro players, join weekly coaching sessions, win prizes, and more with our Supreme Dota 2 membership.
So getting into the video, the first point I want to bring up here is not spending your gold fast enough and not thinking about your item decisions enough either. So this applies not only to the lane but also throughout the whole game. When I say not spending your gold fast enough, I literally mean you literally just do not spend your gold fast enough, right? Something that you need to realize is that having gold in your inventory means nothing at the end of the day, right? And unless you're in a very late game scenario where you're saving for buyback, if you're not spending your gold fast enough, it means you're not being as strong as you can at that moment. And if other people are doing that, it means they are, right? And they can take advantage of that. So something that I notice a lot when I'm looking at low MMR replays or looking at just gameplay from low MMR carry players in the lane in particular, I'll see they save up their gold until like 1,000 or even more gold before they spend any of their gold. And this can be a big problem when it comes to the lane in particular, because in some lanes, for example, if you're in a disadvantage in the lane, or even if you're advantaged, not spending that gold and not getting some of the key items you need in the lane can mean a lost lane when it should have been a win, right? Some good examples of this are like in a lot of lanes, it's very important that you get your wraith bands at a good timing, right? Because maybe you're playing against two offlane heroes that deal too much physical damage. You really need the armor from the wraith bands. You really need the damage. So a good example of a hero like that is like Nature's. So a lane like Nature's Rubik, or just some lane that is hitting you a lot, doing a lot of physical damage to you and harassing you a lot, as well as them having too much damage. The difference between having a wraith band and not having a wraith band at minute 2 or 3 or whatever can be the result of a lost lane and a won lane. So this is something that I think is very overlooked on the low MMRs. Just like whenever I'm watching low MMR replays of carry players, they always just do not spend their gold fast enough. Sometimes they also just don't buy the correct items, right? That's the other part of the mistake here, is that you always need to analyze the lane you're playing in, or even in the game, you need to analyze what heroes you're playing against and what items are gonna be the best fit, right? So for example, in a more mid-game point of view, maybe you're playing against a lineup with way too much control, way too much magic damage. Without a BKB, there's no way you take fights, and this can mean often that you're gonna instead of going for the item you normally go, you would go for an earlier BKB, right? And this is something we see on quite a lot of heroes in this meta actually. A good example of that is Face's Void. If you watch any high tier professional Dota, you'll see in a lot of games there's Voids going for just Mask of Mana straight into BKB, just so that they have that timing where they can fight at around 18 minutes when they get that BKB. Just trying to get that BKB super early and abuse the timing where the enemy won't be able to do anything to them. So this is really another really important point to think about. The other thing I wanted to mention is, this is a more specific thing about the lane as a carry player, but it's something that even at higher MMRs I see carry players making this mistake quite often. And that is dying or taking too much damage when your support is pulling. So generally what happens, or what's going to happen in pretty much every game you play, is that at some point the lane is going to push in. Like now in this game is actually a good example. You see that the lane is very deep. and your support is not pulling, right? Because he's trying to get the lane back for you. And something that you need to realize as a carry is that when the lane is in a position like this, in this case, it's like a little like there is an argument that you can also play the lane because you have a lot more creeps than them. But in a lot of cases, it's just gonna be that your lane is very deep and your support is gonna go for the pull, and the enemy +4 is gonna choose to stay in the lane and try to go on you and get as much damage or try kill you, right? Try catch you out of position. So this is something that you need to pay a lot of attention to in the lane when you're playing carry. So many times I've seen lanes lost of carries being too greedy, trying to contest waves while their support is pulling to get the wave back. And don't get me wrong, in some cases you actually can contest the wave if you're strong enough and your hero has escape. For example, if you're an anti-mage or even a PL in some cases, right, with doppelganger, and you're stronger than the enemy, you can sometimes contest it. But the important thing is that you're always just paying attention in these situations, making sure that you're not letting the enemy just go on you for free and deal a bunch of damage that was super unnecessary, that can end up in you losing the lane or just losing a big advantage, right? So this is definitely one of the things also I see at low MMR, even all the way up. I see a lot of this mistake happen very often. So it's definitely one you want to watch out for. So the next mistake, the next most common mistake I want to get into here is staying in the safe lane for too long and not rotating to other lanes for like catapult timings, or if it's just TPing to help an ally to make a gank. Maybe you're a faceless void with a chrono, you can TP to another lane, kill the enemy mid laner with your mid laner. Things like these are something that I see very overlooked in low MMR games. A lot of the time I'll see that the guy I'm watching, he'll just stay in his lane up to like 15-20 minutes. Even in cases where he's not even winning the lane, he's slightly behind in the lane, he's still just hanging around in the lane, not even shoving in the lane or shoving in the lane and jungling. He literally just lanes for like 15 minutes, right? And if you're in low MMRs, you can get away with this a lot of the time. But something you'll realize as you gain MMR and as you go up in MMR is that a very like common rotation in Dota is that the enemy team a lot of the time is gonna try collapse on your safe lane around the 10-minute mark or even before that, in order to try get a kill on you if you're still laning there, or if you're even not there, the main goal is just to take your tower on the safe lane and just start gaining map control in your jungle. And so generally this happens around the 10-minute mark, and generally like the best response you can do as a carry player when this happens, when the enemy come to your lane, when they come to kill your tower with a catapult, generally it's not worth it to commit so many resources to defending it, because a lot of the time the enemy are already set up here, the enemy have already placed vision here. It's also just not the most important tower. The more important thing is that you as a carry player are actually in the top lane when this happens. So that's either by running there beforehand or TPing there, and making sure that if the enemy carriers may be making this mistake where they're still laning here, you make sure you kill him and get him out of the lane. And secondly, you pressure their tower with your catapult while they're doing that to your tower, right? So these like trades can be very like important in games. In some games, if the enemy carrier is doing this, where he's coming bottom to pressure your tower with the catapult and killing it, and you're not, and you're just jungling or you're laning and you die to a rotation, and this tower stays alive, it's a very, very big advantage for the team that is able to do that. And I can't explain how many times I've seen this. I've seen so many games that have pretty much just been lost off of those moves not being made. So it's definitely a really, really important part of the game. Like this rotation is a very, very common thing that pretty much happens in every game, especially if you're above like 5-6k MMR. So getting into the next point here is hitting jungle creeps for too long, or hitting jungle creeps instead of pushing lanes when it's safe to do so, or even when you've killed the enemies. So this is another thing I see very often at low MMRs from carry players, is that when you see like the whole enemy team maybe taking a fight on the bottom side of the map, and you're located in the top side farming a jungle creep, right, or maybe something, and there's a bunch of heroes showing mid or bottom or whatever the case may be, as long as they're shown on another side of the map, it's very important that you always immediately, as soon as you see that happen, you start hitting the lane creeps, right, and stop hitting jungle creeps. As soon as you know you're safe in that area and you know that there can't be any heroes at that time to come kill you or pressure you, you immediately need to run to the lane, shove in the lane, hit the enemy's objectives, pressure that side of the map where the enemy aren't as much as possible, and try to force them to be there or try to punish them as much. In some cases also, what would happen in these type of situations is you would be looking at the fight that's happening. You'll think to yourself, if I TP here, I can probably turn this fight. I can make my team win this fight. And that's also another play that can happen. But the main point I want to cover is, just because I see it way too often, is that when the enemies are dead or when the enemies are showing on another part of the map, and they can't be there in the location where you are, you need to immediately run to the lane, hit the lane creeps, and hit the enemy's tower. The most important thing is that you're just applying pressure, right? And you're making sure that you're punishing the enemy for not being there, and you're using all the space that your team is making, right? So yeah, that's gonna be the top 4 mistakes of low MMR carry players. Some of the top 4 things that I personally noticed when I've been watching lower MMR replays that I think are really important. If you can start working on these mistakes and start being more aware of them, I'm 100% sure you're going to be able to improve a lot more and start to climb the MMR. So thanks for watching, guys. That's going to be the video, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.